This is a battery life drain test between the POCO M3, ROG Phone 3, OnePlus 8T, Redmi K30, which is pretty much a POCO X2, OPPO F17 Pro, and iPhone 12 Pro Max. So the one that we're going to be focusing on the most here today is indeed the POCO M3, since it comes with a minimal $129 starting price, and it has a whopping 6,000 mAh battery. Links in the description down below, as well as some coupons. The POCO M3 matches the ROG Phone 3's massive battery capacity with 6,000 milliamps. We have 4,500 on the Redmi and OnePlus device. The OPPO is paired with a 4,015 mAh battery, and the smallest all the way on the right is the iPhone 12 Pro Max with a 3,687 mAh battery. Of course, it is going down in order from largest on the left to smallest on the right hand side. We have updated them all to their latest available software via Android 10 on most Android devices. So we have Android 11 on the OnePlus and OPPO device, iOS 14 on the iPhone, of course. The ROG, OnePlus, and OPPO devices are paired with AMOLED panels, the iPhone with an XDR OLED panel, and the Redmi and POCO M3 with IPS LCD displays. I've also dropped down the refresh rates from the phones with a high refresh rate available down to 60 to match the rest. All devices are fitted with Full HD plus resolutions, except for the iPhone, which sits somewhere between Full HD and QHD. This cannot be changed, unfortunately. I'll be jumping through the same amount of apps for the same amount of time on all devices, varying between regular usage apps, music streaming apps, social media apps, games, and even benchmarks. This is Technic. This is my real life battery drain test, and without further ado, let's go. All the phones are currently placed on charge, and they're all sitting at 100% battery level. I will be using an emissivity level of 0.5 on my infrared heat gun to test out the heat of all devices throughout the intervals of the test, which you'll see in just a moment. Testing them all at the current moment, you can't really say is very accurate in terms of usage, since they're all plugged into charge, though this will change to intervals. So as soon as we hit that 30-minute mark interval, this will gradually change, and we'll also get some peak temps as well. We have the timer at the top right hand corner. That is indeed the interval, which the percentages above each phone is in relation to, since this is not real time. Of course, the phone branding above the respective percentage. We have some specifications at the bottom of each device in case you forgot about those, and at the bottom right hand corner we have the current app that we're busy using. After the first interval, which is indeed 30 minutes, we have 97% on the POCO, 100% still on the OnePlus 8T, below that 99% on the ROG Phone 3, matching the iPhone 12 Pro Max. The lowest over here is indeed the OPPO with 95%, and in between all of them is the Redmi K30 with 97%. But you must remember that the POCO and the Redmi devices are both paired with IPS LCD screens, meaning that they aren't quite as efficient as the OLED or AMOLED panels that you see on the rest of the devices over here. After that 1 hour mark interval, we have 92% on the POCO, 96 on the ROG, 97 on the OnePlus, 94 on the Redmi, 90 on the OPPO, and 95 on the iPhone 12 Pro Max, which is indeed beating the POCO M3 all the way on the left, even though that has the biggest battery of the lot and the iPhone has the smallest battery of the lot. The main reason for this is because the iPhone is actually using the new and improved 5nm A14 Bionic chip, while the POCO is using a slightly older Snapdragon 662, which is a mid-range chip or even a low-grade chip running on 11nm tech. I'll get to that in a sec, but as of right now, we have 1 hour and 31-minute mark, 86% on the POCO, which is now 3% behind the iPhone 12 Pro Max, 92 on the ROG Phone 3. Just behind that, the OnePlus 8T doing a great job with a much smaller battery at 90%, 88% on the Redmi K30, which is now 5% ahead of the second smallest battery of the test here, which is indeed the OPPO with 83%. We're nearing onto that 2 hour mark interval, and getting to that one, we have 82% on the POCO, which is now just 3% behind the iPhone, 88% on the ROG Phone 3, 2% ahead of the OnePlus 8T. The OnePlus 8T is indeed ahead of the Redmi K30, and 4% behind that is the OPPO with 79%. So far, the highest peak when it comes to degrees in Celsius is indeed the OnePlus 8T, with the lowest peak and lowest interval being the iPhone, and the hottest interval of the last interval being the 2 hour mark was the POCO M3. We're now on the 2 hour 30-minute mark, and we have the POCO sitting at 77%, 85% on the ROG. The iPhone 12 is now 4% ahead of the POCO at 81%, 74%. Trailing the pack over here is the OPPO F17 Pro. Just ahead of that, the Redmi K30, 6% ahead of that is. And the OnePlus 8T is only 2% ahead of the Redmi, but they do both have the same sized battery cells. But remember, the Redmi has an LCD panel where the OnePlus has an AMOLED panel. 3 hours down the line, 73% on the POCO, 82 on the ROG, 79 on the OnePlus, 76 on the Redmi, 70% on the OPPO, and 78% on the iPhone 12 Pro Max. Now 5% ahead of the POCO, the smallest battery, as opposed to the largest. The ROG Phone 3 does have the same sized battery cell as the POCO M3, but like I was saying earlier, when it comes to efficiency, the ROG Phone is using 7nm plus process node technology, while the POCO is using 11nm process node technology. The most efficient here being the iPhone 12 Pro Max with 5nm process node technology, but it kind of needs this since it's a 5G mobile. Many devices over here are indeed 5G compatible devices, so this test isn't really in relation to how you use your phone when it is on the cellular network such as LTE or 5G. They're all hooked to the same Wi-Fi, however, and before I started the test, I made sure that they were all set to the exact same brightness level using a lux luminous meter as I showed you in the introduction of the video. And I've also made sure to disable X mode on the ROG Phone 3, but sometimes it decides to sneak back up. I'll show you guys a little bit later, but I do make sure I turn it off for the most accurate results over here. We're currently selfie video recording 1080p 30 FPS, and after that 4-hour mark interval, the previous one, the POCO's on 64%, but the lowest is the OPPO on 63%. So one of the biggest batteries is almost lost at the current moment, but stick with me, it gets extremely interesting later on. 4 hours 30 minutes, we have the POCO now below 60%, matching the OPPO with 57%. The ROG Phone leading the pack with 70%, just 2% behind that, the much smaller battery capacity 4500 mAh battery OnePlus 8T, the Redmi with 58%, and the iPhone with 63%. I'm currently running main video 1080p 30 FPS. I usually do it at 4K, but I've dropped it to 1080p because the POCO's max resolution when it comes to the ability to record video using the back or the front cams is 1080p 30 FPS, which kind of sucks, but I had to keep things even. That is one of the few things that has changed compared to my previous drain test. This is another thing that has changed. I'm going to be running Antutu for 30 minutes instead of just 10 minutes and then moving on to 3D Mark. The strange thing that happened here was that before I started running this test, doing the battery drain test, the POCO wouldn't run GFX Bench and all of them would run 3D Mark. So I decided to do Antutu for 30 minutes and then 3D Mark for 30 minutes. But now going into 3D Mark, the OPPO was not able to run 3D Mark, which is really strange. It actually deleted all the installation files, but the POCO started running GFX Bench perfectly fine. So 30 minutes for Antutu, 30 minutes for GFX Bench, and 1080p for video recording. Those are the only things that have changed this time around with this drain test. So you can still kind of compare it to all other smartphones drained on my channel. After 6 hours, we have 38% on the POCO, 11% ahead of that is the ROG Phone 3 with the same battery capacity, but it does have an AMOLED screen and a more efficient processor. 40% on the OnePlus 8T, which has really dropped down far as opposed to the ROG Phone, and now just 2% between it and the POCO. 33% on the Redmi, same as the OPPO, and same as the iPhone, all on 33% right now, which is absolutely unbelievable. But we're getting to that point now where battery life matters at this stage. You're nearing the end of your day and you need to squeeze as much juice out of screen on time as you can, and after 6 hours and 30 minutes, the POCO's on 31% ahead of the Redmi and OPPO and the iPhone, and it is just 3% behind the OnePlus 8T, but leading the pack is still the ROG Phone 3 with 44%. The highest peak was indeed the OnePlus 8T in terms of temperature, and the lowest peak now being the POCO was indeed the hottest when it came to the last interval. Let's check this interval out. 7 hours, all of them are still going. I cannot believe it. 25% on the POCO, now leading the pack between it and its other budget friends over here, the Redmi and OPPO, and it's even beating the ridiculously expensive iPhone 12 Pro Max by a percent over there. The ROG Phone 3 at 41%, now really rubbing it in on the OnePlus 8T's front with 29%, though the OnePlus 8T is still doing a better job than the POCO, and it has a significantly smaller battery. We're currently in Helix Jump gaming over here. This tends to drain phones a lot. 18% on the POCO, which is now 8% ahead of the Redmi and the OPPO, but now 1% behind the iPhone with 19%. Really crazy here. ROG Phone 34%, 19% on the 8T, just 1% between it and the POCO, and it is exactly the same as the iPhone 12 Pro Max. Google Chrome scrolling right now, and we're nearing the 8-hour mark. I've never been able to have all of the devices on my test bench all past the 8-hour interval mark, and this is the first time it has ever happened. There we go, guys. All of these phones can safely get 8 hours of screen on time, with the hottest phone at the current moment being the OnePlus 8T and the coolest being the Redmi, and the POCO's coolest being on the peak side of things. After 8 hours and 11 minutes, the OPPO F17 Pro decides to say cheers to us. Still absolutely incredible time for the second smallest battery of this test, with a milliamp hour per minute reading of 8 8.18, which is absolutely phenomenal. You'll see in a minute when I start comparing it with other phones that start to knock off. We're getting to that mark now where it's about to be joined by the Redmi K30, 8 hours and 27 minutes. It has a significantly bigger battery than the OPPO and only a slightly better time, and that is why the OPPO actually has a better rate when it comes to milliamp hours per minute, beating the K30 in that respect, but not overall time. After 8 hours and 30 minutes, 8% left on the POCO, 6 on the OnePlus. Which one can make it past the finish line first? Well, actually last, I should say. 25% still of juice on the ROG Phone 3, 7% on the iPhone, now below the POCO at the current moment, but it does have a bigger screen, but it does also have a more efficient processor. 1% left on the POCO. I just gave a thumbs up because I'm really impressed with it. It's the first time I'm doing a drain test. It might even improve going forward. 21% on the ROG, 1% on the 8T as well. Which one is going to die first? It is indeed the OnePlus 8T with 9 hours and 2 minutes, which is absolutely phenomenal battery life considering my last test I did on the OnePlus got just over 8 hours, so it's improved since the last one. And the POCO decides to say cheers after 9 hours and 6 minutes. Over 9 hours of screen on time for a phone that cost $129. Don't look at the IPS display, don't look at the processing chip, look at the battery life. That is phenomenal for the price that you're paying for that phone. It does have the worst milliamp hour per minute reading, however, because it has the largest battery of the bunch. So the OPPO, having the smallest battery and only an hour less in time, has a much better reading. And now the iPhone said cheers to us after 9 hours and 17 minutes with the absolute best milliamp hour per minute reading of 6.62, which is great. At the end, I'm going to compare them if they were to all have a 6,000 milliamp hour battery and see which one would place where using milliamp hour per minute readings, how they've been trickling through the battery department over here. We're nearing the 10-hour mark on the ROG Phone 3, and after 9 hours and 30 minutes, we had 16% of juice. After playing a couple games here, we're on 8% after 10 hours. It's still going on my last test. I actually got over 12 hours on the ROG Phone 3 using 60 Hz. Remember, we're using 60 Hz over here, so it should be pretty similar. But before that, I've also tested it at 60 Hz and it only got just over 10 hours, so it's kind of beat that score, but it seems like it's not quite going to reach that 12-hour mark once more. Let's see what's going to happen here. So far, the hottest phone in terms of ending off has been the POCO, with the coolest one having been the iPhone and the Redmi. The ROG is still going after 10 hours and 30 minutes, 10 hours and 41 minutes, and the ROG Phone powers down doing what it loves, and that is playing games, with a 37.8 degrees Celsius reading at the end, making it the coolest end temperature, and the POCO the hottest end temperature, with the OnePlus having the hottest peak and the OPPO having the coolest peak. 6th place is the OPPO F17 Pro. It might have come last, but 8 hours and 11 minutes for a 4015 milliamp hour battery is phenomenal. 5th place, we have the Redmi K30 4G, not the latest device around, but 8 hours and 27 minutes for a 4500 milliamp hour battery. Cell is great. 4th place is the OnePlus 8T. It might be 4th, but oh my goodness, over 9 hours of screen on time for this device is just stunning. 3rd place, we getting to the big boys now. 9 hours 6 minutes for the $129 POCO M3. Great battery life, just don't look at the milliamp hours because it didn't do too well for its minute reading. iPhone 12 Pro Max, 2nd place here, the smallest battery of the lot, and 2nd with a whopping 9 hours and 17 minutes. And 1st place, still the best battery monster on my channel for 2020 so far, the Asus ROG Phone 3, 10 hours and 41 minutes, though it does have the biggest battery cell of the lot. Comparing these results to all of the results I've tested on my channel, the ROG Phone 3 is still at the top. The iPhone 12 Pro Max are now placing 3rd with an improved time over my last test. POCO is placing 6th. Such a cheap phone, what a great way to go out. The OnePlus 8T not far behind that, then the Redmi, and the OPPO pretty much in the middle over there, but still incredible screen on time. When it comes to milliamp hour per minute reading, the iPhone did the best job with 6.62, and the POCO did the worst job with 10.99, but not far behind that, the ROG with 9.36. So it seems like these big battery beasts are not doing the best in terms of milliamp hour per minute reading. Obviously, they did the best in terms of overall score, with the iPhone being slap bang in the middle of them. But if all these devices had the exact same size battery as those two, being 6,000 milliamps, the iPhone would place first, getting a crazy 15 hours. Second, the OPPO. Third, the OnePlus with over 12 hours. Fourth, the Redmi. Fifth would be the ROG, and sixth, the POCO with their same time, since they already have that size battery. But if you consider the price, the POCO M3 is an incredible battery performer. I would have just liked to see how it would do with a more efficient chipset. A sub to the channel would be absolutely fantastic. This is TechNick, and I'll see you in the next one.